Hi everyone, Jay here from Interview Query. I wanted to do a video on what to expect for the Facebook data scientist interview. This is a pretty in-demand subject that I've heard about from a lot of followers and subscribers on just what to expect in the Facebook data scientist interview and how the entire process works. Generally, it's pretty straightforward. Start out with just going over the general process of the interview, negotiations, if you actually get an offer, then there's like a matching system, and then at the end we can go over a few of the interview questions that they're likely to ask and what to prepare for. Starting out, I would say that initially the interview is essentially a recruiter will reach out via LinkedIn or via email. And so they'll definitely understand and gauge how like your resume against their actual position role, right? And so a lot of the times what they find out is that the data science role at Facebook is much more business facing than actually they would like. Facebook data scientists do a lot of work around analyzing data and presenting it to different stakeholders, and which means that many times that this is very different from actual machine learning roles or possibly like more data engineering heavy roles, right? That people are expecting that come along with data science interviews and data science roles at companies. This role at Facebook is definitely not like a model building role at all, right? It's basically very much product focused. And everything that you're doing is to drive the product forward. After the recruiter email, recruiter will talk to you on the phone and they'll do basically just get an insight of your past experience, see if your resume matches to what you can actually talk about. A lot of the phone screen is about communication and seeing if you can actually talk about your projects in a legible manner. So definitely practice how you would talk about and explain your past projects that you've done before. So the next part of it is actually the technical screen, right? So the technical screen is essentially two parts. It's either a product kind of sense and intuition kind of interview, and then a technical and data processing portion, right? And so the product sense part is the first one usually, and that one is basically trying to gauge how you can articulate and solve business questions while you actually think through the problem. And so many times this is present when you think of how Facebook has a bunch of different like array of products, and so it really helps to just engage with each one of these products and spend some time going through, Instagram, going through like the news feed on Facebook, even Oculus, because there's just all these different products here. A lot of these questions the product questions generally deal with like measuring success and like growth of this product, right? So imagine that you create a new product like Facebook Watch, and then you want to know like how well is it doing on Facebook, right? And so that's why a lot of these product managers, they get these questions, right? And they ask these questions to the data scientist, right? And it's the data scientist's job to actually figure this out. And so a really good way to prepare for this is just to ask a lot of questions while you're using the Facebook products, such as, what kind of metrics do you want to consider when solving for questions around health, growth, or engagement? How would you set up experiments to evaluate any new products or improvements? And then how would you tell if a product is actually performing well or not? And so a couple of example questions that have come up in the past when I've been talking to different customers is one is like, how would you create a process to identify fake news postings on Facebook and then define some metrics? Another one is Facebook sees that likes and reactions are up 10% year over year. Why could this be, right? And so these are all general product questions that want you to dive in and try to engage with the actual what's actually going on, what kind of data would you actually look into before you actually have a chance to write any SQL queries, right? And how would you efficiently spend your time to investigate this question in order so that you could come up with a solution like fast enough, right? And so the second part is the technical portion, in which is actually part of the product, right? This part is a SQL question. Like these are now the interviewer is now testing you to see if you can actually solve the SQL question to prove that you can actually write the queries to solve like the product question that they asked initially, right? And so many of these questions are something where they'll give you a data set and they'll ask you to write a SQL query, or use pandas to analyze the data set to achieve any kind of expected result, right? And so the example that a lot of the recruiters like to give the actual the interviewees is, let's say that you're given an attendance log for every student in a school district and a summary table with demographics. Using this data, could you answer questions like what % of students attend school on their birthday? Or like what grade level had the largest drop in attendance between yesterday and today? These are all questions that you could easily write using SQL. And also the difference is that Facebook uses CoderPad, which means that you actually have to write with real SQL, right? And so you can't write pseudocode or anything kind of like whiteboard code. Your code has to run and it has to create an output. And while a lot of the times I think they don't have the problem output like the console where you can actually write the SQL and see a result, the code does have to be like very much working if they actually had the real data set there. So this is these two questions make up about 45 minutes of the technical screen, and this is usually where most candidates will fail out, right? Because you have to have a very polished sort of understanding of both technical ability and product sense to pass this round, and this is probably why most of the times you see a lot of people don't get to pass this part of the technical interview. Okay, so the last part of the Facebook interview is the on-site. And the on-site is actually very quick. It's actually just 2.5 to like 3 hours long, with almost like minimum break in between each interview. There's almost no break because everything is like pretty much fast and curated and very much a 30-minute interview each time, right? And so you basically get 25 minutes to answer the question that they ask, and then you get 5 minutes to ask them any questions. And every single time people are hurrying in between, it's definitely like a huge mind clusterfuck. And so prepare yourself for like the on-site interview, right? Generally, the interview consists of 4 to 5 different parts, right? There's like one statistical or probability question, one product-based question, like the technical round, and then another product more execution question where they're asking you more of a modeling type question as well. And then the third one is more so of a like straight up like data analysis question with testing your SQL skills. And then you also do spend like 45 minutes for lunch, one-on-one time with a data scientist that allows you to just kind of learn about what they do and see more of the campus. I would say that some general tips for the entire process is, and specifically the on-site interview, is that people are very, they just lack a general sort of like casual feeling about it. Like it's very formal. There's no like, kind of as much of a startup vibe, I would say, even though Facebook does have a culture of being very like hacking and such. I don't think that they bring you on the interview to actually really understand what kind of like person you are, except for during that lunch interview, right? So they do screen out people for being assholes, being rude, not very nice people that can't communicate well. But at the end of the day, I think they are looking for very specific requirements in the technical and like the product senses of their interview, and so those are going to be like the moments where they'll actually judge you the most. It also helps to be nice, and cordial with the recruiters that are helping you each step of the way. They actually want you to pass more than anyone else, right? And so this specifically is really good because you need people that will help you out, and recruiters are great at really moving you through the process at Facebook. They definitely will help you try to negotiate your package well, but you definitely have to offer them an incentive to do so, right? You can't just go out and state like a number once you get an offer and expect to get it because you saw it on Blind or you saw it on another website on Glassdoor or something, right? Definitely have to be understanding of like where you come from and what exactly you can bring to the table and how much years of experience you have. And you use those as just general factors in terms of, negotiating your position and also where you stand with other companies. And also at the end of the day, like how well you interview is one of the main factors in determining the level of compensation. And so this means in every single one of your interviews, it's important to perform very well. I think that goes without saying, but at the same time, completely and directly correlated to your compensation package and how well of an offer you're going to get as a whole. And so definitely helps to study practice a lot. So at the end, I think let's go over a few of the sample Facebook data scientist questions. I'll just read them out, and then maybe I'll do another video about actually trying to solve some of these questions depending on how well this does. I think that's completely fair. So the questions are, let's say, how can Facebook figure out when users have falsified and they did not attend the schools that they put on their profile? Second question, so given a list A of objects and another list B, which is identical to A, except that one element is removed, find that removed element. So if 70% of Facebook users on iOS use Instagram, but only 35% of Facebook users on Android use Instagram, how would you investigate the discrepancy? How would you map nicknames to real names? Write a query to produce a histogram of user comments over time. And then let's say this is a probability question. We have two options for serving ads with a newsfeed. 1 out of every 25 stories will be an ad, and every story has a 4% chance of being an ad. For each option, what is the expected number of ads shown in 100 news stories? And so all these questions are actually on Interview Query as well. I'd encourage you guys to check it out. It's free. You can sign up. Thanks for watching and subscribe to this channel.